Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto anime review. So straight away at the start of this one, I will say that also keep in mind that today is the release day for the next Boruto manga chapter. So I will have a review for that chapter out later on when it officially releases, the official Viz release comes out. So just be aware of that we have a new Boruto anime episode and manga chapter today, both of which I will be discussing. But we're here to talk about the anime episode. So this is episode 276 and is effectively the first episode of this sort of, survival game of death, Squid Game style arc. We also got the setup from the last episode. And from what I hear, people seem to still be saying that this is still interconnected with the whole Hawk plot, which I guess could make sense in that, the mother, if she's plotting revenge, maybe she orchestrated this. We'll see how they attempt to bring that to light. I'm not quite, seeing the connection myself just yet, but I like the transition into this arc, if it is or isn't connected ultimately. So, again, lots of new names. I'm not even going to attempt to act like I know or have memorized pretty much any of the new characters' names. There's just so many of them. So I'll basically be talking about them by sort of like their character archetype or sort of position and so on. So, they're obviously being held in this facility. It's revealed here to be a maze is what they refer to it as. And there's a bunch of rooms. It actually seems like there's quite high tech. But then they're, the person interacting with them is interacting with them through a puppet that also seems to be able to, the guy seems to have some sort of kind of dimensional jutsu where he can sort of teleport out, which seems kind of interesting. So whatever the reveal here is going to be somewhat interesting. He explains to them all that what happened was that they all miraculously survived the train crash, which was that the train, when it was going by a drug processing facility, the facility exploded, the train was caught up in that, and everyone was hit by gas, which put them to sleep or something like that. And these are the ones who obviously managed to survive here. So they're being kept in this facility to make sure they're not contaminated. But then they lead into the idea that, and we're performing this game of death on you. So there was a slight weirdness there about okay, so you come up with this kind of somewhat okay explanation. But then you're just full on game of death ultimately here. So we get some cool things that happen immediately. He straight away offers the idea of here's 9 cards. I think what did he say? You had a 1 in 9 chance of basically getting the card where you live, otherwise you die. And one guy does it assuming that I'm not just going to die immediately by getting this game of choice wrong. But no, the puppet just kills him, spikes straight through the head in a pretty brutal scene. Now, of course, they didn't show it, but the way they, in a way, attempted to show it made it very clear what happened. Pretty brutal scene. And that's probably one of the things that kind of stands out from this episode is that there was definitely a severe lack of fear about just seemingly killing off characters. Now, there's obviously going to be some questioning of okay, it seems like that guy died, but did everyone who fell off the collapsing platform just die? Because it felt like there was a couple of maybe shock character kind of deaths that we got here if they just sort of fell to their doom or something like that. Again, we're probably going to have to wait for some of the reveals about what exactly is going on here for a lot of that stuff to really come out. But overall, I thought they did a pretty good job in this episode about introducing quite a few, I think relatively interesting characters, in that you have a group of sort of young shinobi characters, including someone who is from the Leaf Village. You have what seems like a very inexperienced and lacking confidence shinobi character. I think that was Shomo or something like that. I forget his name again. All these names. You had the young. It's what seems like 2 young female shinobis. I think only one's confirmed to be a shinobi, and then the girl who hurts her ankle. We'll see if there's something going on with her, because it almost feels like, is she trying to lure in kind of Shomo for something? We'll see what happens there. Is there a big betrayal coming? But like I said, I like that there's characters that are kind of Boruto's age, but then there are actually a couple of adults, a couple of sort of what seems like slightly older teenagers here as well, including one girl who immediately goes up to the guy with the briefcase, which seems to be a briefcase of money, and is like, hire me and I'll protect you. And you see that she is willing to do what she needs to do to survive by basically threatening that, like, if you don't hire me, you'll die here. So a few like little alliances like that are actually kind of happening, which is somewhat interesting. You're seeing the idea of like, okay, here's a group of people who seem like they are ultimately willing to help out their fellow competitors in all of this. There's a few characters who seem like they are presented as being somewhat sort of like useless at the actual like tasks that they're being presented. Other ones are just being completely sort of selfish, where they're all about themselves. And then other characters are actively seeking to take out other competitors. So that seemed like the big significant like character plot point from this episode was you had the older shinobi kind of bounty hunter guy who has the kind of adult guy in the handcuffs and like the seals on all of his arms and stuff like that. And in what I thought was a pretty shock moment, you established that this is actually this really nice guy who's trying to help everyone while still keeping his bounty from everyone else, highlighting how dangerous this guy is. He tries to keep the collapsing floor together with his jutsu, and they both go off the edge. And this random woman, in an attempt to just save them, has to save the guy who has the handcuffs on. But in doing so, of course, frees him to be able to do what he wants to do, and he basically just lets the older shinobi fall to his death. And so this is meant to be this big kind of thing where this is the reveal of like the first character who seems to be actively trying to sabotage the other competitors so that he can get out himself. They revealed that he seems to be able to transform his hands into like scythes and stuff like that. So that's the big danger on that side of things. And other than that, like you had a kind of monk-like guy who seemed like he was trying to help people. Again, they're going to switch the focus as we go through episodes. Other characters will jump, I suppose, a little bit more into the spotlight, and we'll see how we go with this. I'm interested to see like what the whole intent here is, because like if this is ultimately connected back to the previous stuff, it feels like, shouldn't this like in a way like just be Boruto captured here? Like why were there so many shinobi just on that one train? What is this meant to be, like specifically targeting all of these people? Like is it something random and it will be some sort of a crazy Squid Games-esque thing? It's hard to say. The plot of this seems to be that they get 5, they call them experiments to do. First one is collapse, and by the looks of things, we'll probably have an episode devoted to each one before it wraps up, because I think that fits in line with the amount of episodes that people were saying this like grouping of episodes, this arc was meant to be. So that's probably the way they're going to do it. We'll gradually see the characters get whittled down until there's only a few left, and we'll see how they attempt to wrap this up. If they have an interesting explanation about like who's behind this, what the actual thing is, because like there's a few things that you're interested in terms of like, okay, what actually happened to the train? Like, was there just like gas like installed on the train and that's what happened and immediately knocked them out? Because I don't buy the whole explanation thing. But anyway, so I thought this was a pretty good episode, just because it's a plot that immediately seems like, okay, there's going to be some substance here. It's going to be a little bit more eventful than some of the other stuff we've dealt with recently in Boruto. And there's a lot of just like kind of fun designs, interesting characters that, you know, this game show, you know, Game of Death style thing is always interesting to some degree. So if they have the reveals down and can make this work, I think we're in for, I think, a solid grouping of episodes here. As for like, will they attempt to connect it back into the first couple of episodes with the Hulk and stuff like that? We shall see. But I think pretty solid stuff so far. Again, me not remembering the characters' names is I don't think a reflection on like poor character writing. It's just we've gone from the first grouping of episodes effectively had, say, like 4 or 5 characters with names, to all of a sudden, like, here, now learn the name of like 10 to 15 new characters. And so I absolutely don't know who to focus on for now. Again, it's the first episode introduced to all these characters. We'll learn them as we go along. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this episode. And remember, a new Boruto chapter is out later on today. I think it comes out in like 4.5 hours or something like that. Probably more like 3 and a bit hours from the time the video is actually live. So just keep that in mind. I will be doing a review of that chapter later on, and it's expected to be a pretty big and notable chapter. So that's the other thing that's quite hype about this one. Big things are expected to happen. So let me know what your thoughts are on the episode, but that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.